From the East Coast to the West Coast, we are everywhere true crime is. We are asking for the public's help. We are searching in the woods. We are doing what it takes here on the Bullhorn Betty channels to find answers to the most alarming cases we have been watching on the news. I can tell you personally that I have traveled this entire country seeking these answers and bringing that content right here to you here on the Bullhorn Betty channels and Bullhorn Betty Crime Stories. We are happy with the work that we've done. We brought many answers to the public, and we have defied mainstream media in our pursuit of the truth in these cases. We will continue to work. We will continue to fight for these victims, and we will continue to tell their stories here on my channels. Welcome to the Bullhorn Betty brand of channels and the Coffee Club. Thank you for your love, thank you for your support, and more importantly, thank you for allowing me to bring these victims' stories to each and every one of you, advocating for each of these victims. God bless you, God bless America, and more importantly, God bless our victims. A little bit better. Good morning, my beautiful coffee beans. I hope you guys are doing well. We are still on the trail of Sebastian Rogers. Good morning, Jenny. It's nice to see you, my love. It's nice to see you. So for those, because we are advocating for this young boy, his name's Sebastian Rogers. He's a 15-year-old boy that disappeared from his home in Hendersonville, Tennessee, and everything from that point forward is history. This case has kind of been a little crazy, from having weird nonprofits, coming in and shutting down searches and collecting money, to a lot of stuff. Volunteers being followed, and signs being torn down, and people being threatened. And now we're hearing a whole host of other things related to other creators, boyfriends, girlfriends, all this stuff. And it just is, this case is just, insane to me. And I feel like this family has been completely, utterly railroaded. And I'm talking about Seth, in this process, because he was at work, he was having a normal day, and gets a call no parent should have gotten, and was told, don't be mad, but, your kid's missing. And that's the way it went, because Chris was not calling this boy his son or anything nice about this boy at the time. It was Katie's son. You heard it in the first interview. We've been watching and listening to it. If you guys haven't, I've been running the very first interview that Chris and Katie did on my YouTube channel, my Bullhorn Betty Crime Stories. It's my smaller channel. It has just a little under, I think maybe it's right about 7,000 people on it on YouTube. But I've been running the first interview. It was on Dutch's. And it was very interesting. And the reason why I went back to that interview is because Chris McDonough had Steve Johnson. Now, these people, Chris McDonough, he's a retired homicide investigator. He's worked over 300 homicide investigations. And Steve Johnson is another retired officer that did a lot of behavioral analysis, speech analysis, handwriting analysis, things of that nature. Very, very well. He's got a good gift. He's very experienced. And so he was on there, and he was listening to the green shirt interview that Katie and Chris had with the news organization. Well, one of the things that he said is the reason why he was watching that one and analyzing that particular interview is because he was trying to find the newest interview, like the not the newest, the one that was the oldest, the one that they did first. They want to go to the most original interview that they can find, because that's the most uncontaminated interview, according to Steve Johnson. And he says, we heard the green shirt interview, and that's the one they were analyzing. But I had heard that they had given an interview on a smaller channel prior to that. So I did find a list that had a lot of the interviews on it. And so I looked at it and realized that they had an interview with Duchess on YouTube on March 3rd. their interview with the news organization, I believe was on March 6th, if I'm not mistaken. I have to go back and look at the time. But either way, it was a couple days before. Well, in this interview, Katie's story is much, much different than what she had originally told Duchess. Here's a key factor that we learned on that Duchess interview. In that original interview, there was no thud at Tenn, which many of us know that was introduced later. But what we fail to understand is Katie's original story is that she fell asleep on the couch around 9. She fell asleep on the couch around 9 and didn't get up until 10. And the way she explained it is shortly thereafter went to bed. And then when the commentator repeated that statement shortly after you went to bed, it was around midnight. At midnight. She made sure she put midnight in this original interview. One of the funny things that I noticed about this interview was done after, and I mean after, law enforcement had interrogated him about some key factors in their story, because you could hear that they had this disdain in their voice when they were talking about law enforcement asked them this. Law enforcement was pressuring them at day 4 and 5, asking them how in the world this child could have just walked out of the door. They've made multiple questions to Katie and Chris, law enforcement, according to their statements on Duchess, about how this boy could have how Sebastian could have gotten out of the house. And that's why they're adamant that he walked out. They had no choice but to assess how he walked out, because there's only two options here, right? He was in his bed. So either something happened to him inside that house or he had to have walked out. The problem with the walking out theory with Chris and Katie is every single time they're on a panel, they explain how much he dislikes being outside. They talk about his sensory issues. They talk about how he doesn't like bugs, how he doesn't like flies. I have to think walking out in the middle of the night in Tennessee, there's going to be bugs. And you're talking about a kid that would freak out over bugs. Freak out, right? Doesn't like it. Doesn't like it. Would most likely start working for a meltdown, because it may not just be the bugs that might give him a meltdown, but the bugs, the dirt, and the cold might give him a meltdown. And there's no meltdown. This kid, seemingly every single one of his tics that he has no control over having, the sensory issues he has no control over having, the allergies that he has no control over having, all just miraculously went away this evening that he disappeared. It's a miracle how this boy defied all odds, all medical reasoning, to walk out the door, and then further defies all law enforcement reasoning by the best thing being he left not a stitch of evidence behind. The lack of evidence, I've always maintained, is the evidence, because to me the lack of evidence shows cleanup, and I don't see a 15-year-old autistic boy cleaning up after himself, especially when his parents have gone on 15 different panels and said how much he hates cleaning and how hard it's been and how they have to bag his stuff up in garbage bags and throw it away because he won't listen. Okay, that's where we're at. So I'm going back to the drawing board and trying to plug in information, and we've got I've got several little folders here that I've got different things going on when it comes to this case. And so I'm going back to my black folder, my main folder, which is the one I work on in the most. It has my original list of questions when I analyzed this case at the beginning, that all of these questions, I want to show you this. All of these questions, and this is just one small section. This one here, this here. None of these questions have yet, after 3 months, been answered, which I find odd, because usually I have all these answers by now, and there's none. That's concerning. That's very problematic to me, because whenever you have a missing child, a lot of parents just tell you the information. They don't try to hide their face. They're not out in the, yelling at camera crews not to record their house when they have a missing child. they're willing to go out in front of a camera. They have a camera crew right there. They have a missing child going out there. Hey guys, I have a missing child. His name's Sebastian Rogers. This is what he looks like. He's been missing. If you guys have any information, please call law enforcement. We have an active search coming on here. I don't know if I would be going out there telling him, take the cameras off my home. I'd be using those cameras with a picture of my missing child and saying, hey, can anybody help me find him? We're desperate right now. We don't know what happened. He's medically needy. He cannot survive out here on his own. We need all people to look at this boy. Please, if you've seen anything, please call law enforcement immediately. Get that emotion. Get the people drawn in. And he didn't do it. He ended up going out there and yelling at the folks to not record his house. This is not normal behavior. And then Chris has the audacity to come on my show because I'm talking about this and wants to sit here and threaten me that he's going to sue me for talking about his stepson's case that disappeared from his home. And he thinks I'm worried about a freaking lawsuit. I'd be worried about your life, to be honest with you. Because if I'm here and I'm not law enforcement and I can put all this shit together, what do you think law enforcement's doing? Chris, do you think they're in there dunking their donuts? Do you? Because they're not. They ain't dunking their donuts. And the most stuff they're getting is calling you and Katie to fill in those damn holes in that story. Isn't that why you're having so many conversations with law enforcement, Chris? It's only a matter of time, dude. You think you're smarter than a fifth grader. You're not. You're not, son. You're not. So we found out another key factor that people have forgotten. And quite frankly, it makes me question the story. So Costco and BJ's are kind of bulk selling, okay? You purchase things in bulk. So when me and you go to like the grocery store, we get a 32 ounce of mayonnaise, right? Okay, when you go to Costco, you get about 10 pounds of mayonnaise. Much different measurements. Okay, so probably 20 pounds of mayonnaise. I don't even know what the damn thing's heavy. I know that. So they went there Saturday. It almost makes me wonder why they went to BJ's. But according to Katie, BJ's had just opened. And they wanted to go there and check it out. And so I don't know if that was their first time there or not. But I just thought it was weird. Like you just went the day before to a wholesaler bulk store. Why are you going to another wholesaler bulk store? I mean, because the way I'm looking at it, like normally I wouldn't pay attention to little minor details like that, right? I mean, it's a freaking grocery store. You're getting groceries. Who gives a shit, right? my favorite line, right? Who gives it? But in this case, it makes me wonder because at this time, the only people staying at the house is Katie and Sebastian. Do they need this much food? And she said she went to BJ's to get her boy snacks. Well, you were just at a bulk store the day before. Did you not even think of your son on the Saturday when you were at Costco's with him? So why are you at Costco's one day and BJ's the next day? When only two people live in a home? Like, I mean, I get it's a grand opening, but why did they just go to the BJ's grand opening, and if they couldn't find what they needed there, then go to the Costco's? It just was weird. It was just weird. So we found out that. So we have a Costco's visit Saturday. We have a BJ's visit Sunday earlier in the day. She never even attempted to identify whether anybody was with her at BJ's, even though her sister-in-law, Michelle, is stating that she went shopping with Katie. When did they go shopping? Was it at the BJ's? Because she said she went shopping with them on Sunday. There's only one shopping event that Katie had spoken about, and it's the BJ's. But she never spoke that anybody else was with her but her and Sebastian. So, the whole story is confusing. When they went to the bowling alley, was that day, deemed, would somebody that knows Sebastian, would they deem that day overtaxing for him? family, friends, bowling, BJ, steakhouse, And then we've been told all this time since this case went mainstream that Katie put Sebastian down at 9. She was studying and talking to her husband for about 3 hours from 9 to midnight. And that somewhere in the mix, while she was on the phone with her husband around 10 p.m., she heard a thud, didn't say anything, didn't hear anything, and asked Sebastian, hey, did you fall out of bed? No, Mama. Okay, well then whatever you're doing in there, knock it off and go to bed. Go to sleep, right? Go to sleep. Well, according to this first interview, that's all. All that detail has been added. All of that detail has been added. Her original story was that she fell asleep on the couch and that she woke up around 10. And when she woke up around 10, she went to bed shortly after that. She even glossed over the fact that she was studying and called her husband. It wasn't her husband until her husband piped in. Well, she ended up calling me around 9:43 or 9:46, which I found really weird about the 9:43 and 9:46. That was a weird number for him to remember. Let's be honest, that's a weird number. Normal people would have been like, he called around 7:30 or 9:30 or 9:45. To be so specific at 9:43 and 9:40, there's a reason for it. That's not normal speech pattern for me. That's not normal speech in my opinion. But again, I don't know. So we learned that he was called about that, and their 3-hour conversation at this time was really only about a 2-hour and 12-minute conversation. So again, a lot has changed in the story since that one. So that was even newer than the green shirt interview. And again, the reason why I'm going back there is because Steve said that we need to look at the latest interview, the one they did the first, because that's the most uncontaminated and untainted version of the story. So that is why I went back looking for that video, and I wanted to hear. I'm not even through it yet, but there's a lot of details in that story. I mean, even back then at that first story, they were adamant that Sebastian did not like outdoors. He would do something. He would never go swimming in an ocean. He's a good swimmer, but he would never go swimming in a pond. He doesn't like it. He doesn't like dirt in between his feet. He doesn't like dirt. Why is Chris suing? He's not suing me. He tried to intimidate me with a lawsuit. That's the difference. He has literally no legal standing. He's got people. So there was somebody on YouTube. I heard it today. Oh, that's what he needs to do. He needs to look. We have laws in this country. The reason why I'm able to conduct the business I'm able to conduct, like YouTube. There's hate channels on YouTube that call this tragedy pimping because we advocate for children. Like they are literally lost their ever loving mind, right? And anyways, this one person's like, oh yeah, he needs to sue her. That's the only way these tragedy pimps are gonna stop. And it's like, you realize, like, my work is literally covered by the Constitution of the United States of America. This is how idiotic these people, like, they have no common sense over on YouTube. Literally no common sense. Some of these people, I mean, there's great people on YouTube. Don't misunderstand me. I have a great group. But there are just some people that literally need to go back and get I don't think they graduated school. Like, there's no way statements like that are coming from high school graduates, okay? Like, my work is literally covered by the Constitution of the United States, not a state ordinance, not a state law, like the supreme law of the land. That's where Chris is going to have a problem. But seriously. But we're going to still advocate, and this is what we're doing. We're breaking this down. And I understand it's uncomfortable for people because people believe that these parents would never do anything to their child. And I'm saying nothing else makes sense here. It's not like I don't know who Chris and Katie are. They seem like I think they're probably weird in person. Personally, if I got to know them, I'd probably get a weird vibe because I can just tell that they're not my cup of tea. I've been around bikers. They're not any type of biker group or people that I would hang out with, I can tell you that. But, oh, thank you, Jamie. But their behavior has been atrocious. It's been weird. We don't even know what happened that day. Out of 3 months, out of all the talking they've done, on all the panels they've gone to, we don't even know what's happened. Thank you. God bless you. God bless you. And then we learned that they left the steakhouse around 6:30, got home around 6:40, and then we don't hear hardly anything. Well, in this earlier interview, she does kind of fill in some of that nothing. She says that Sebastian was in his room playing. So it sounds like Sebastian didn't really leave his room. When he was home, it sounds like he stayed in his room. And then we're starting to fill in some time, like when she called Chris. Chris is saying 9:43, so now we have that. It wasn't 9 o'clock. But I find it weird that we are learning that she fell asleep. So if she was sleeping, how did she hear a thud? Right? She was clearly sleeping. She said she fell asleep on the couch at 9 and woke up around 10 and went to bed shortly thereafter. And then when when Duchess said, so you went to bed at around, or you woke up around 10 and went to bed shortly thereafter, all of a sudden she's piping in, yeah, around midnight. 10 and 12, that's 2 hours. That's not shortly after waking up. I believe the shortly after waking up, but I don't believe that she would say shortly after waking up, have that repeated, and then say, I went to bed around midnight. That's not shortly after I woke up. That's 2 hours later. That's a lengthy time. She was also reading a chapter in her book during that time. Yeah, doesn't make sense. I mean, I did a lot of stuff whenever I was young, in my 20s, when I was going to school, working 2 jobs, partying, and literally had no sleep. Like, my whole 20s is a freaking blur, among other things, right? I want to say my 20s was raging, roaring 20s, but I don't remember. And the stuff I do remember, I don't want to. So we have the conversation with Chris, the 3-hour conversation that night, and what we're learning is on that original call or that original interview with Duchess, that it seems like law enforcement really did hone in on this factor about him walking out the door. I don't think law enforcement believed. And see, I would have never had that interpretation until I heard this interview. I'd never heard Duchess' interview before. We're hearing rumors that Chris reported to work at 5:15. And the reason why I say that, I mean, I understand it was PI that found this information, but there was nothing, there was no receipts provided, and I don't like working with other people's information without receipts. Not that I'm saying she's lying, she didn't do a good job, that this time is not anything, and not saying that any PI should produce a receipt to satisfy me. I'm just saying I can't take their word for it on my channel and say that because I got no receipts and I'm not going to verify somebody I really don't know that well. You see what I'm saying? So we did hear, and it to me would be a reliable source. I think a PI would be a reliable source, but again, I don't know this PI. But they said, so I'm going to take it as rumor, that Chris was at work around 5:15. We heard from an employee there that we allege is an employee, but again, I saw that I actually did see the comment and the text message from this person, but me personally doesn't know who that person is, or whether that person works at that job, or whether that person is not using an impersonated name. So I don't know. So that's why I got to tell you guys that may be rumor. But it sounded probable, and I really do believe the guy was on the job because of some of the critical information he said. He said one key thing that rang true to me. So he says that Chris did not get in his tower crane until 7 a.m. So I've always wondered, why in the world was he there at 6:15 if he wasn't starting work until around 7 or even 6:30? That's a lengthy time to be to work in the morning. We also learned from that same person, and this is why I believe that this 7 o'clock is true, the 7 a.m. is true, or came from a worker, is because it was his direct supervisor that apparently posted this, and apparently his direct supervisor, because of his nasty attitude, Chris did not request to leave work to go home to deal with his missing son. He didn't request that. They kicked him off the job because of his bad attitude, according to this source. And again, you got to take that. I got no receipts. So I believe it's true, but just because I believe it's true doesn't make it so. I've got no receipts. So it could be true, it could not be true. And when it can be true and cannot be true, we classify that as rumor. So even that is rumor. But to me, I'm using the rumor. I'm adding a rumor in one of my evaluations and theories. So then we learn that Katie wakes up at 6 and immediately calls her husband again. They talk the night before for 3 hours. Sounds like they're setting their plan up for the next day, getting everything in place. Then immediately, as soon as she wakes up, she calls him. Well, he's not in his bed, right? He's missing from the house. Cue to, now it's time to move to next phase. He reported to work. She found him missing. And then the other thing is that none of this, of her getting in her vehicle and driving around at this point, is ever brought up in her story, which leads me to believe that law enforcement has not yet questioned her on why she got in her vehicle and left the house to go search for him. Because when law enforcement got there, we have body cam footage, audio, that states that Katie was not home when they arrived. And we have neighbors stating that she left her house for about 10 minutes. And so if you add those things together, they don't make sense, because if Katie only left to search for her son for 10 minutes and law enforcement was called and sent out within 10 minutes and was at the house, and they were there before she got back, that means that she didn't leave that house and search for her son until after she called 911, which is weird for me, because usually you're searching while you're calling or something like that. And if she was gone only 10 minutes and it took them 10 minutes to get to the house, then you're looking at a woman that called law enforcement, then left the house to stage it as if she was looking for her son. Because their story is that she drove around, and on her way back home, Chris was calling three-way, the non-dispatch line. And in this interview with Duchess, he goes through the wonderful thing of the 911. So he knew he could pick up literally any cell phone, whether it was activated or not activated, and pick up and call 911 and get an operator. He knew that, and he explains that on there. So now that we learn that they called the non-emergency line, it makes you question, why did he go through that dissertation about the 911 and how wonderful the system is and how you can use any cell phone. It's a federal thing. That was weird, leaving her house. Yeah, especially when she knows her son doesn't leave the house. Why would she think he would get out and walk out? Like, nobody, this doesn't make sense. Like, if like from where I'm sitting, if Sebastian was my kid and everything that I've learned about him just over these last 3 months and he wasn't in the house, I would immediately call law enforcement, because I know my kid would not just willingly walk out of the house. Especially if I looked down and saw all his shoes. I'd be like, immediately, something's not right here. There's something not right. Like, you would have, there's no question, like, you would immediately know something is not right. You wouldn't have to get in your car and drive around. You would be immediately calling 911. Your child's not in the house. He's autistic. He doesn't like being outside. His shoes are there, and he's not there. There's no looking. 911. 911. You know your child better than anybody else. You know this child is not walking out of that house without shoes. You know that. When your child was not in his bed and not around that house, 911, not Christopher Proudfoot, not getting in my car, we know something is absolutely, without a doubt, wrong. This child it needs to be in this house. I woke up every day for 15 years, and this child was right here. All the windows and doors are locked, and my child's not in this house? 911. What would ever make her think that she walked out of the house without his shoes to go to school? Doesn't make sense. She knew he would never leave or go to school without shoes. But yet she's going up to the school to see if he's already started heading towards school. Why would he get up and just head towards school one day out of the blue? It doesn't bode with autism. I've had my autistic go missing. That's TikTok watcher. Send me an email. I'd like to pick your brain about that. I don't want to do it just right here, but I'd like to pick your brain about it. One thing that you could do here is your child typically a runner, and what was the reasoning your child left? And did your child leave, like, if your child normally puts on shoes or has like a tick, like they have to, have a certain item in their hand or something like that, did they take that item with them? Did they, how did that all, those are the kinds of things. That's why I want to pick your brain, because there's no way you're going to be able to write all that in this chat. But my email is bullhornbetty@gmail.com. So if you'd like to, send me an email. I'd love to. Yes, he's a runner. Okay. And another kid accidentally left the door unlocked. Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. So with you having this, maybe you can answer this. With you having this, do you think this story about him walking out in the middle of the night, you having an autistic child that runs, like your child is a runner, so you're kind of, always on you're probably very cautious to make sure your child doesn't run. Do you think that it was common, knowing that Sebastian isn't a runner and higher functioning? Do you think that the whole story that he just walked out the door in the middle of the night, knowing he's got the sensory, hates dirt, bugs, all that crap, do you think that bodes with him? Have you ever had that experience where they just kind of defy their own, like, ticks? We have locks. Just read this. We have locks everywhere. No way the kid walked out. Okay, yeah. That's kind of where I'm at. I mean, normally, if it was a normal child, yes. If it was a normal child that, and I talked to the one bus driver, she's been emailing me, and she said that she could see that a higher functioning autistic having a fit and running. She says she could see it during a daytime, but definitely not nighttime. Not with all the ticks. Like, he just doesn't like dirt. He doesn't like bugs. He doesn't like, normal boy stuff. So normal boys like to go, collecting lizards and frogs and snakes, and he doesn't like none of that. He don't want no part of that. Give him a video game. Give him a video game. And when it happens, I called 911 immediately, not my husband, and the cops say, don't leave the house. Gotcha. Don't leave the house. Interesting choice of words. And that's exactly. So Katie will leave the house in the morning to go find her son that she knew did not walk out her door, but won't leave the house to go search for her son after he's gone. It's just sad. I don't know. But I welcome any lawsuit from Chris Proudfoot. I think he just tried to intimidate me. I don't think he knows my background at all. I think he needs to do a little better research. But, I don't know I think it was, he literally threatened me on the very first live on YouTube. So that leads me to believe that something I said the day before, and we were talking about, the holes in their story about this child walking out the door. And we were also talking about what else was missing from the house. And we were talking about suitcases and bags and tennis shoes, possibly other tennis shoes. So I think it's one of those four things that got Chris. So we obviously triggered Chris with some commentary we said. That leads me to believe that we're getting, we're ruffling feathers. That's where I want to be. We hit something a little too close to home. That's what it is. We hit something a little too close to home, and I need to go back and explore it. And I need to go back and listen to what was being said and what he said and how he said it in my chat, because here's what we got. Hold on, let me see if I can pull it up for you. Because one of my girls put it all in a nice little, it didn't sit right. Dad burn it. Oh, well. But he goes through, they grabbed it, and it's like, I'd rather go through court. But down at the bottom, it says, I'm going to get all you effing channels, terminated or something like that. I want to sue all you and take all your channels. And I just good luck with that, dude. I know the law. I know what I'm allowed to do. I know my limits, right? I know my limits. I know what I'm not allowed to do. If I choose to cross that line, I choose to take on that liability, right? And so it's crazy, because people honestly think that that some people have no right to advocate. Like we were advocating for this child right here, you know. His father wants his name plastered literally all over this. Like, the hell with these people on here that think that they know what these families want. Now, I understand Chris and Katie probably don't want us talking about this child anymore. Exactly, Deborah, because the news is tightening. But we need to look at Katie, because Chris is backing Katie's ass up. Katie was the only one in that house when that child disappeared. Period. Mommy dearest, what did you do with your son? And I also started thinking, while I was on my live last night on YouTube, like a light bulb went off my head. And I keep wondering, you know, we were looking at that 3-hour conversation as Chris's alibi. What if it was Katie's? What if she needed to be on the phone with him to give herself, you know, showing herself in that house while she's doing other things? What happened earlier that night? Because we're being distracted by a 3 a.m. light source on a camera, but all of our professionals say that whatever happened most likely happened between near that 10 p.m. time mark. That whatever nefarious thing was going to happen happened near 10 p.m. And that just so happens to coincide when she picked up that phone and called Chris. So lots of questions, guys. I'm putting these out there. We're going to explore a little more of this later this afternoon. I'm still working on it. I'm still working at my direction. But you see, we've got some momentum. We're fact-checking the crap out of Chris and Katie's story. And so far, the most important factor of this story is not holding water. So what else is not holding water? We're checking. We're finding out Katie fell asleep on a couch. She wasn't up. She fell asleep. There was no thud. There was no thud in the first interview. There was no thud in the second interview. There was no thud in the third interview. The thud came in the fourth, fifth, and sixth interview. They were changing their stories based on how they were being questioned by law enforcement. It's starting to become clear. So we're going to keep going down and we're going to watch how their story changes. This is how I know law enforcement's asking them, because you're hearing them telling about, yeah, that's what we were talking to law enforcement about that, you know, because they were so comfortable saying that at that time. Now they're having to go, we made this mistake here. We made this mistake here. Let's hope nobody finds it. Well, we're going to find it all. We're going to find it all. And we should have already found it, but people have been on these stupid little I can do it better campaigns, and let's beat up an innocent man instead of helping him find his kid campaign. So we are kind of, the true crime genre is behind the 8 ball in this case, because obviously a lot of people hit their head on the crazy train and fell into stupid. So hopefully it looks like some of them are kind of fishing their ways out of that you know, insanity train and coming back to reality. So it looks like we're starting to get some more good creators kind of coming back and going to analyze this case appropriately instead of negatively. So we'll see how this works, but we're going down this. Our focus here on this channel has been victim oriented. I've been getting a lot of questions about, and I wanted to clarify this, about whether or not I'm on this team, right? The answer is, and I've fielded several emails of whether I'm working with Seth or working with Tony. And so I wanted to read my response so everybody understands my position on this and who I am and why I'm doing what I do. Okay? First of all, I want to be very clear. I work for no one. Okay? I don't work for a case, this, that, the other. I work for no one. Let me find my answers to this. Here it is. I don't work with anyone. I cover cases and help families in need. I've done enough to know Seth is innocent and the Proudfoots have a lot of explaining to do. People were hurting Seth, so yes, I put my channel and my platform slap in front of it to shield him. Because at the end of the day, this is what I do, and I'll do anything it takes for these cases. I'm looking for a victim, and I'm looking for a bad guy. I'm not looking to hurt another victim, Seth, which I believe he's also a victim in this. So I hope that clarifies things for everybody. I am Team Sebastian. I saw an injustice. I acted on that injustice. I put my channel, my name, and my reputation to help shield Seth from the crap that was going on with him. I'm proud to do it. I did it with Layla Santinella's mother. And I did it with Seth. And I will continue to do that when I see stuff like this. And when it comes down to it, I will go to the mattress for these cases. And trust me, there is not a thing I will do lawfully. I have a lot of laws at my disposal to allow me to advocate for these cases in any type of fashion I want, as long as I'm within those confines. And I do that very well. I do it spectacularly. I am a professional, okay? Many people don't realize I come from a political background. I'm a professional coordinator, professional community organizer, professional protester. I'm a professional at a lot of different things, okay? So one of the things is I advocate for these children, and I have a platform and a mouth, and I know how to get attention. I know how to get eyes on these cases, and so I use the abilities I have to help. And so I hope that people start helping. But if you ask me, you know what? I see a man that's struggling. I see a man that's trying to find answers where his missing son is. And at the end of the day, I would have done this for Harmony Montgomery's mother if she called, right? Wanting to find her daughter. And we know her story, filled with drugs, abuse. She didn't care about her daughter at one time. It took her having to get clean. So people come from a horrible walks of life and do terrible things. It doesn't mean they don't love their children. Parents aren't perfect, and people have to walk their walk. It's not for us to judge. I've had a walk. People judged me for years for it. I don't care. I don't care. We all have that walk. Seth has his walk too. He's not a perfect man, but he didn't do this, and he's in pain. And you know what? I search for people. I help people. I don't try to hurt people. The only people I want to hurt are the bad guys. The only feelings I want to step on are the bad guys. And when I got two parents that are unwilling to tell us simple answers, I'm pressuring the shit out of them. If anybody's got a problem with it, stand in line. But one thing I will not do is attack an innocent man. Okay? I don't care when he got married to who, how he did it. As long as it was legal, we're hearing it was. End of subject. Not my problem. My problem is this boy right here and what happened to him inside of their house. That's it. I don't care about anything else. So if that's called working with people, I'm working for Sebastian. If you need to put if you need to find out who my client truly is, my client is Sebastian Rogers. Okay? And I'm doing this out of a labor of love. I don't answer to anybody. I don't answer for anybody. But when I see an injustice, I am going to speak up. And when I see somebody not saying things the right way, and I know how to say it the better way, I'm going to say it the better way. But yes, my channel is slap in the middle of it, and my channel is helping protect some of the stuff that's going on, and I'm giving a very solid, good message about this stuff because I've got the platforms to do it, and you need to have a larger platform to handle some of the larger platforms that are coming after you. And what's going on with Seth is unfair. And anybody that supports what's being done to Seth by a couple of now content creators on YouTube, one's using a Twitter platform and one's using their thumbnail platform on their live shows. She's about to get an ugly dose of Bullhorn Betty because I know a lot about the dirt in her closet. See, it's so funny. You guys like airing out everybody else's dirt on these streets. And you want to hurt a victim of a crime, Seth Rogers, when you got your own dirt in your closet that I found out about. Just saying. Just saying. All right, guys. Well, I just want to tell you, take care. This is our show for the day. We'll be back later today as more information, but we're going down this drumbeat. Did he walk out the door? No, he did not walk out the door. Okay, well then he had to have gone out of the house somehow. Now it's time to look at how he could have gone out of the house. I don't believe this boy walked out of this house. The majority of my audience doesn't believe this boy walked out of the house. So how did he leave? something's missing from that home. What's missing? What's missing? Something's missing from that home. Because they didn't just throw them over their shoulder. But as you can see where my mind is. All right, guys, God bless. Say a prayer for Seth. Say a prayer for Sebastian. Let's try to bring Sebastian home. Today's a great day to bring this young boy home. Anybody that has any information to the whereabouts of these two people right here or his location, you are asked to call 1-800-TBI-FIND. Again, that is 1-800-TBI-FIND. This beautiful boy right here has been missing for 92 days. His mom's not freaking out. She's calm, living her best life. Not a worry in the world. Chris is just wanting her to move on. Pack up this baggage, put it in the closet, and time to move on. Time for them to move on and just get past this issue. Because this is just an issue, according to Chris. All right, guys. Take it for what you will. God bless.